Okay, second fireside chat in the row. And welcome back again to PLG Disrupt. And I'm here together with Amitai Gat, Head of Product at Elementor, and Shane Correa, Serial VP Customer Success Leader. And we're here to talk about PLG ownership. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy to have you both here. It's going to be a nice fireside chat. I'm very sure about that. And I can't wait to hop onto the questions. Are you ready?
Hopefully.
Very ready.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
We're here, so we'll see.
So let's start with general questions for both of you. So the first question is that the end user era is here. How do you think that the SaaS ecosystem is adapting to that? Shane, you can start.
Okay. I think many on the call are aware of some of the more traditional ones, community cabs and voting, stuff like that. But for me, of course, customer success perspective, it's about capturing what the customer needs and being true to that, and then taking action on that. The biggest thing from a SaaS perspective is having the customers that think that they understand, or you understand them. They feel appreciated. There's a value there. And the best way to do that is with personalization. So I think in a lot of the other discussions, that has been a very clear trend on using that information, not only their usage, but also who they are, who they're working for, the context, the objectives that they're trying to achieve, and then catering the message to that. So they understand how this product or this service could make them as a person succeed, and then how their company would then be successful with that. Another couple areas, external data. I know people are using social media and other types of data to augment that, again, personalization, but pulling in generic data, seasonality, shows that you understand their business, their industry, and again, adds another layer to that personalization. Feedback, how we, not only what we do as a company, but why. So I think we're good at pulling information, and of course, product marketing is the other way. And customer success has always been where we meet quite well, and messaging what we did, why, and how they benefit specifically from these types of things. That one last one is I call it have the cake and eat it too. There's an element of control, so you can, as a company, do a lot of releases. You can be rolling out every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 2 months or 6 months, but you can give the customer the ability to choose, to enable those features. And if you talk about large enterprise, that can actually make a big difference in how quickly they'd be able to roll out and do, again, re-onboarding, which was one of the previous sessions, so that what you build actually makes an impact rather than you build things and it's not actually being used. Yeah. So those are some areas.
Amitai?
My turn. So how are
so the question was
to the user era?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think some companies are responding more than other companies. I think there's a lot of aspiration to get there. I think for some companies it's easier. It's a lot depends on the actual product. Looking from a product perspective, some companies, for them it's easier to adapt. I think new companies are already there. I think they're looking at that, and they look at the model, and I think this is this is where you want to go. I think for existing companies, sometimes like I said, it really depends on the product, but it's definitely it's coming. You can see that shift in across the spectrum in all different verticals, even in verticals where you wouldn't expect to see that happening. You're already seeing that, right? So I think it's adapting quite well. It's going to take a while, right? But I think it's definitely moving there.
Great. So the second question, again, it is for both of you. Have you noticed a tendency for users to be more independent and not relying on customer-facing teams during the onboarding period and beyond? Anyone?
So,
Yeah. Go ahead,
you go
Shane.
first.
I'll go first because you went last time.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not sure this is like independent is the word, right? I think there's expectations for those products to be more self-serve. The experience needs to be better, and I think that yes, there's less gonna. I think working with customer-facing teams, like an actual team, is be perceived as actual friction. You expect the product to work, you expect to get what you're doing, and if you have to kind of resort to talking to an actual person, that's usually when there's you run into a problem or something like that. So I don't think it's users becoming more independent as the expectation there, and the product is adjusting to fit that new kind of the user expect.
And I think it's a great points. I hate with an answer to say depends. It depends, but in this case, it does depend on the breadth, complexity of the product, and then the person on the other end. So you were saying that I want just something, and that could be how you process it. And then there's others. I worked in had small medium business, thousands of them, who were transforming and were not very familiar with technology and really needed to be pulled and coached and sometimes kicked through the door by humans that could joke and build a relationship. But you also have people that didn't want to talk to someone, and then like you said, had friction. So we had to build out from self-service all the way up to high touch, and even high touch, you were using some of the same artifacts. So you, as an onboarder, I could say, okay, you're curious about this, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then I would search into the knowledge base, pull up that article, show them how easy it is to find an answer, and you're not only utilizing, getting reuse out of what you've invested, but you're also teaching them this behavior to self-serve. But also giving them that high touch and that relationship, because unfortunately there's so much psychology to it. And maybe this is on, again, some are larger companies, some are smaller. It really, again, depends on the person. But if I'm thinking about a large enterprise and I have hundreds of people to onboard, each one of them are going to sometimes have an individual approach to education, to communication, what they find funny or not funny. I mean, it's insane, the level of complexity. But I guess the best is when you're able to combine both, so that I do exactly what Amitai or Lillian, Lillian wants to have a conversation, or Shane doesn't, but I have the ability to do both. That's the best world.
Yeah, and to kind of augment that, I think that you're correct that some products are not all products are the same, and there's definitely products that where the customer actually requires customization and they are complex, and there's no way to support fully self-serve product in those products, and then definitely you can but that experience also have to be tailored to kind of like this new.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get into that. I would suspect it's also as a mindset, like when you build it in a perfect world, it should be self-explanatory. It should be that elegant, that simple. Your aids and pop-ups and everything is contextual in the right time, but what we rush for is a minimum valuable product and get it to market. And I've, as a customer success, I'm always like, hey, can we have this, and can we have this, and can we have this? Because it's going to reduce our cost. We won't need as many people to teach. But again, is it broad, or is it doing one thing? Is it just doing, I won't say survey, because that's obviously, but one aspect, or is it a full CRM with invoicing and inventory and routing and on? Then you need more.
Okay, so I have a question for Amitai. So you own a product that is directed towards B2C and B2B. Which common characteristics do you see between the two audiences in regards to go-to-market practices?
Well, yeah, that's actually a great question. When I think about our product, about Elementor, I usually think about it as a B2C product. But that's kind of in my head, and I also talk about it like as a B2C product. But I think this is more about how I kind of differentiate between B2C models and B2C models. So the funny thing is that there's a lot of businesses that are using the product, right? Like it's like it's being used by freelancers, and just do-it-yourself users, all the way up to like large businesses and agencies. So it is a product that is, but the go-to-market is strictly B2C. That like we don't even have like a sales team, no AEs, no SDRs. This is like completely kind of like consumer, like B2C product, and it is being used by businesses. So I think this is a perfect example of where you can see that how this product, just being a good product, just penetrates everywhere, including businesses, and just kind of really like a classic kind of product-led product.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you. And I have a question for Shane. Shane, you run digital transformation at both small and large organizations. How do you see them adapting to the PLG era? Is there any significant shift in their mindset in regard to the end user experience?
So the last session actually touched on this, and not to reiterate the situation that we're in, but it has forcing the hand of both large and small organizations to be where the customer is. So large organizations, it can be within retail, entirely flipping to full e-commerce, and 50% of their stores are being shut down, and then having an agile supply chain that could source from the store instead of from traditional production facilities. Yeah. So a large scale, never been more necessary to have common data models so that they can actually know what's happening across the globe. So it's forcing them to adopt technology in a far more faster than ever before. And then the smaller ones, unfortunately, well, and the large, but smaller ones they die out if they don't adapt, if they're not where the customers are. It's never been before. It could have been maybe a slow transition to being unsuccessful. Now it's overnight if you don't do this. So where if you work in sales, it's a compelling event, but it's never like if you had issues with your supply chain before, and maybe you've optimized it, for example, to do status quo, and then something happens and you realize, you know what, I always wanted to be agile, but now I have to, otherwise I will go under. So I think that's where I see, again, there was the talk before about outbound product management. With large organizations, they've never been have more needed now, working with customer success to say how do we not invent ourselves, but remind our customers of how you can use the product, and almost re-onboard them in times when we see that the usage is maybe not there, or be for them in different ways, and introduce integrations that may not have been there. So they're also trying to be, again, more agile. So touching on different things.
Very important point.
Be where the customer is, I guess, is the short version.
Of course, yes, totally agree. So again, to Shane, which do you think are the biggest challenges in regards to enterprise PLG transformation?
So I guess it's again a bit old school, but for me the biggest challenges have been associated with human aspects. It's change management rather than the technology of it, and it can be that the product is seamless and has built-in best practice, and it's even taking in input from the industry, and we know it's the best. If an organization is used to doing certain things a certain way, there is an element of change. So there's very much, why is this good for them as an individual? Why is it good for the company? And it takes an organization to sort of embrace this change. And also the fact that many times they have an existing software. So those people that are doing this job need to keep their business rolling on the old one, learn a new one. A few times it's, yes, there's going to be a go live and you'll switch, but understanding that that pressure that's on them and facilitating that in a very, that's by giving structure, again, by communication. This is what we do, this is what you do. A lot of details around customer success, I guess, but that's where I'd see when we're able to understand what's in their head, and by capturing it over time. There was a session previously about onboarding and re-onboarding in a more deliberate way. The more about them, the better I can address them as an individual. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a human. Maybe I do. I have a different approach in my tone in different emails, or I do more video, I do more other things, but it's deliberate. I know how Lillian would get through this in the best manner.
Definitely.
So it's human aspects, but I don't necessarily have to do it one-to-one.
Totally agree. So Shane, again, last question for you. Can you share a few examples of organizations that are successfully making this transition?
Well, I several in the US, again, small medium business before this happened. They were struggling with archaic technology or none, and then embraced the technology and were extremely successful. And it could be things as arbitrary as plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, door openers. But there's a lot of heritage and pride in some of these small family-run businesses that it takes a lot to make that transition. So they know a lot about everything about plumbing, but they don't want to be bothered with technology. They want the technology to empower them. So there can be some resistance up front, but then eventually it can transition. And it's always good to drink your own medicine. I remember doing this multiple times at a couple of SaaS companies and that originally were on premise and then launched SaaS. And we had our own collection of systems and poor processes and not one central data. And it had to start with people, process, technology. We had to make sure the team understood where we were going, how the technology was going to help them, buy into the process, then you implement. It's not the other way around. So yeah, some personal examples when, of course, things can go wrong and not go according to plan, but I do think it's when you embrace the fact that there are humans on the other end, and you get to know what makes them tick. That's again what people call personalization. That's usually when things can start happening. You get the momentum on building into that.
Do you see generations responding differently to technologies and to this transformation? I mean, people who own small businesses. This is a personal question that arises now. Do you see people with small or large businesses of different generations leading the businesses have different responses to transformation? So for example, boomers versus millennials.
Yeah, the exciting thing is that if you go into a conversation with preconceived assumptions just based on how they dress, their voice, how old you think they are, you will fail. So the amazing part is when the team is coached and aware and genuinely curious. If they are genuinely curious to get to know this person, then you'll figure that out in the end, and you can laugh. So yes, there are instances, small medium business, that we transform them from no technology or old technology or simple, like very, very niche full suite. And that's a big change. But if they could envision getting past the clicks and, that's not a pink button, that's a blue button, but actually seeing the end game and what they can achieve, if they personally get excited about it, then they almost can get past the frustration. But if they combine their individual frustration with also, it's combined with maybe other issues they've had in the past about technology. So it doesn't matter how old, but it's usually built on unfortunately previous experiences, and that's again where that human aspect can can lead someone through that phase and build on what they know. So I make you feel good about what you do know. You're the best at what you know. I don't know anything about your specialization, but together we're going to get through this.
That's an amazing approach, and I totally agree. So, moving on to the next questions, which are directed to both of you. So, you both have a very heavy product background in optimizing customer experience, either via the product itself or by capitalizing on human-assisted resources. So, having practiced many go-to-market and business practices, who do you think should own growth within the organization?
I go, yeah.
That's you, Amitai. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the bottom line is that this is a team effort. If you need to have this is a product company, so the product is the owner, but that it
Okay.
in real life this is a real team effort, because if you look at it like that, everything is the product, right? You work at a product company, everything is the product. The support is part of the product, education is part of the product.
So the whole team, the whole company, let's say.
The whole team is part of the product. Community, right? Like, we have
The whole community,
a
yes.
huge community. The community is the product. Marketing. So the entire experience is the product. So you have, like the official owner, which is the product, but everything is part of it. So while the product, people are busy, building the product, like the education team is busy, creating the resources to make it possible for users to understand, the product and succeed in the product. And, the success team is working to make sure that the success actually happens, and, walk the user through the product and train them. And, marketing, does whatever his marketing does. And so this is,
Okay.
so this is, it really is a team effort, right? So I think this is very distributed. I don't think there's really a sole owner. Everybody's the owner. And I think that for successful, product, led companies, this is how it has to work.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I see growth, I also think more traditional. I think it's hard to be great at sales, great at customer success, great at building a product. So I'm more traditional in that growth should be with success in sales.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also relies on the product. If it's very simple or very elegant, a lot of help in product with personalized, data-driven message that feels like a human, then you need fewer people, because you have the inbounds. Like, you've built that funnel, they're already coming to you. It's a niche that is probably easy to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Then you probably don't need a ton of others, because you don't need sales to do you see what I'm getting at. Then you could probably have less, and it could be more product driven. But when I see a full feature, pretty enterprise, it doesn't have the enterprise, but a full feature product, I think it does require specialization. And then I think growth. But again, betting back to Amitai, if the product isn't successful, you can put like band-aids around it,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't. So it is coming down to the origin. It still needs to be a great product. Then everything else can build from there.
Okay. So moving on to the next question, again directed to both of you. Do you think that the PLG changes the reins in regard to the departments associated with an organization's growth levers? Anyone?
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I think obviously if it's PLG product, so yeah, I think it does shift from from sales, and specifically sales. I think marketing is really gonna becoming part of the product, but it does shift from kind of like inside sales to the product and other organizations. But again, shifts to the entire experience, more of an end-to-end experience. Everything is part of the product. I think for sure there's a shift.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think it depends on the approach in the beginning. So if it's built from the ground up with this in mind, you have the insight, you have the levers, then it stays. It's from the beginning and stays in product. But if it doesn't, then and you need the others to help message or help teach them to use it, or help sell it, then
yes.
So I think it depends on the insight that you get from the product from the beginning.
I see. So another question is, how does the role of product management changes in the PLG era? Any of you?
I can. Well, I think it's very empowering for product management. Obviously, right? Like if in the olden days, a product manager could kind of get by being a product manager. That's no longer possible. I think a product manager has to do real product, has to really kind of become the CEO of the product. Really has to understand the business and the user. Has to have like this kind of 360 of everything. And I think it's very empowering. Puts a lot on the shoulders of the product manager. So I think it drives the profession really forward, makes it more important, but it also requires more skill, more experience to get things right. It's no longer just kind of putting everything together, and kind of making sure that everything connected. It's really becomes like a thing that where you need to have the skill and to see the whole picture. So yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely see how at least the experience that I've had with outbound product management in a way that has migrated. It's becoming almost everyone is getting out of the ones and zeros or the details. Yes, you need that depth, but they're talking more and more to the business. They're talking more and more about value and how it actually makes a difference, rather than being really deep in technical types of conversations, which for some I think has been a great journey and only more value. It really depends on the person, but it's always about what the customer needs. The closer you are to what they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it, all of that is just feeding back in, and the challenge has always been scale. Like how do you process all that information? You have 100,000 customers, you can't talk to 100,000. So that's when the structure and the process comes in, and that's where I think both any customer facing, not just CS, any customer facing person in the company adds value because they have those conversations all the time. So that helps to aggregate some of that maybe anecdotal information, but it still can be nuggets specific to industry verticals and stuff like that a product manager may not have.
I have one last question from the audience. So Wayne says, how do we get more chance to have commercial success, especially avoid the unfavorable situation that sales says client need feature A, product team agrees, engineering team build it, do not sell well, and clients are asking feature B again? Do we get that question?
So sorry, I'm wasting time. What did you broke up the last part of the last question?
Okay, I will repeat it the whole.
Sorry.
Okay?
Sorry.
So how do we get more chance to have commercial success, especially avoid the unfavorable situation that sales says client needs feature A, product team agrees, engineering team builds it, does not sell well, and clients are asking feature B again?
Shane, you want to take that?
Never heard that. Yeah. Never heard that. So we do that every day, all day. And I said sales, so I thought that was interesting, because sometimes it does come from, or many times I think comes from retention. It all comes down to, do you believe in what the product does and why we do it and the value it provides? Do you believe in the roadmap and where the product is going? And if you do, you're able to take those needs, an individual, I want this pink button, and say, I understand that. I understand why, because you've explained it to me. I understand the impact to your business. we're doing this, and this is why. And these are going to add this much value. And hope it's not a distraction. It's a distraction if you don't believe that it's a value. So no, I don't think we should be in that. And I think we should say no to a customer. And we may lose a big cut now. The larger the revenue, I think the influence, sure, but it should be in line with our strategy. And it should be up to us to say, we won't, there's integrity in that, to say, we won't do this. These are the reasons why. And you may not agree to it, but, and again, those are tough conversations to have. And I think that's unfortunately our job. But it still comes down to, do I believe in our product and where we're going? Has to start there.
I agree 100%. I think this is having been in that situation about a million times before. I think this is this has to again be, you know, the understanding of the entire company, and you know, from, you know, at a startup especially, it's very difficult to make those decisions, right? Because, you know, can mean your entire success. So in order to go and say no, you know, this is bad for the product, you really have to sometimes take a hit, right? And sometimes that's not going to sit well. Maybe in your company, might be the CEO, might even be, you know, the investors, you know, or the VCs that are, you know, expecting to see those sales numbers. And it's definitely not an easy thing to say, like Shane mentioned. I think that strong companies, you know, and product-led companies that have the, you know, the trust of everybody in that chain have to make those decisions. And yeah, it's not easy, but you know, that's what product is.
But you're always tying those to the ARR. I mean, it shouldn't. If I went to Amitai and said, "Hey, I need this for this one customer," I get laughed at. Yes, it could be a big customer, but everything should be related to how much money do we expect to get this across all the customer base, across retention, across upsell. How do we price it? Is it included? Is it not? It's there's a lot to getting that one thing done.
So, gentlemen, it was so nice having you. It was a very nice fireside chat. I hope you enjoyed it.
Very much so.
Yeah, very much. Thanks for having us.
I'm very glad about that. So thank you so much. Hopefully we see each other again in the future in another fireside chat or a presentation. I don't know. Okay. So
sounds great.
Have a nice night.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Okay, so stay with us. The last session is coming up in 1-2 minutes max. Okay, stay tuned. We're coming back.